Hello there and welcome to Mark Hart's Hypnotherapy. Today we have Steve. Hello, Steve.
Hello, Mark. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Steve worked we worked together on a little project, a bit of anxiety, and he's got a wonderful story for us. And so, without further ado, but first of all, thank you actually. Thank you for doing this. I always start with that because, as I always say, one word or one sentence from this testimonial may resonate with somebody out there and they get help. So, Steve, without further ado, why don't you tell us what was going on with you?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mark. I think it's fair to say that well, not probably, suffering with extreme anxiety, many internal battles in terms of how to respond, not react, but respond to life and its challenges, and also reframing the relationships that were around me in terms of ultimately coming to the conclusion that some things around us, while we may mask as well, that's so and so to me, or that's my family. I think it comes down to understanding that ultimately toxicity, and sometimes we have to make a choice.
So obviously you were going through these problems and you decided that it
Hmm.
was time to actually deal with this. What actually made you decide that hypnotherapy might be a good idea?
I think exhausted quite a few different methods. I'd gone through therapy in the general context of things where you talk about things but don't really come down to a resolution, or you don't come down to a point of solution. Um, I'd gone through CBT, so cognitive behavioral therapy as well. But again, there is only so much you can reframe things before you come to the point where you have to yourself come to your own conclusions, which is an extremely difficult thing to do, especially if you are a person that cares greatly about people and not upsetting or rocking the boat, as they say, or prodding at the bear. I think sometimes you have to flip the boat and you have to bury the bear, because unless you do, you're stuck with it. And that brought me to the place where I realized I had to try something different, which instead of trying to therapize it's a bit of a made up word there, but it will stick. Instead of trying to dull down the elements I was dealing with, it was to deal with them head on and to work out what my subconscious was trying to tell me through that process, to try and simplify that process and ultimately bring it down to roots, which was ultimately irrespective of the relationship to what people are around me, which I will go into deeper detail during this testimonial. Simplifying it, which is this a person that I want around me based on what they have shown me? And that was the biggest challenge, which was, once someone has shown you who they are, believing it for the first time, and then deciding whether what you have seen and you now believe is whether they are good for you or ultimately not good for you.
And how did you actually find me? What was the system that you used in order to find me?
The system itself, well, as it goes, my partner was deeply concerned about me
Ah,
because I was in my head most of the time. I was becoming very reclusive to many people, very untrusting, and started to develop not healthy habits, which I have no issue in disclosing. I saw the bottom of many bottles, too many, way too many. In fact, me and my partner were laughing about the whiskey watts that were going on in my household, matching that of the electricity bill. You can take humor in that as you will, but the reality is that the whiskey watts were high. Our electricity bill was high, and thus was the whiskey watts. Going through the process, found me healing the bits that turned me to that, to in what I thought was numbing the pain. It wasn't. And since going through the process, and I will go back onto how I found Mark, But since going through the process, I'm not seeing the ends of bottles anymore. But my partner was worried because of the whiskey watts and went on the search on my behalf to find someone that she thought I would resonate very well with. That happened to be Mark,
She's a good judge of character.
a very good judge of
It was a
character.
good
Even
marriage, wasn't
it,
it? It was a
it
really,
was,
seriously, it really was a good marriage. We
yes,
resonated really quickly. I think, in my humble opinion, you know.
very quickly. I feel like you didn't need to get the the toys out that bring people back into their space. I feel like it was an instant connection to the subconscious to let it do its job.
So, what was hypnosis actually like for you?
Interestingly, I feel like hypnosis was not the how do I describe this? It wasn't a degree of oh my, everything is saved and everything is enlightened and an immediate of oh, this all makes total sense. In itself, the hypnosis was the trigger to enable me to confidently move forward. So it's not as though the solve was not always there. It was the solve or the missing piece in the puzzle to let me connect the dots that my subconscious to my conscious were trying to ignore or trying to protect me against, which was ultimately I have a terrible family. I know I don't play the victim card, so to speak, but my family was dealt a pretty crappy card. And that was masked by, well, their family, and that's my mum, and this is my sisters. But the reality is that as they stand as people, they were terrible individuals, no moral compass, and that collided with my moral compass where I actually had one. And it set the difference, which is not necessarily my standards are so high, but their standards are so low that they're happy to betray people, including their own siblings and family. And that was something that I deeply struggled to overcome as a person because the statements were being made, oh, but that's your mum. But the reality is it was a silhouette of what I thought would be a mum. And I'm better off without these people in my life bringing me down.
Interesting point you made there. You said the solve came later, and this is a really important point actually because of the
Hmm.
way I do hypnosis now. I do something called conversational hypnosis, and a lot of what happens during the face-to-face session is about getting all the gumph, all the nonsense and rubbish out of the way, so that you have a clear road and a mission for when I leave your home. The
Hmm.
therapy actually starts then. That's when the therapy actually starts, and the mind's got a clear run of how what its mission is and how it's going to deal with problems. So by the time I come back next week, it's a case of the most incredible thing happened this week. This happened, that happened, this happened, that happened. In fact, I let go of this, I let go of that. I don't know how it happened, but it just
Hmm.
happened. And I'd
I
like
think
to think
it's
that that's what happened with you.
I think it's probably prudent to say that it happened even before then. We had our strategy call,
Ah,
and within an hour, I made the decision to cut my family out of my life, even before the hypnotherapy, because it was the reality of acceptance that started to kick in. And I realized that actually, when I got into the full hypnotherapy sessions, I didn't want to be dealing with struggling with the decision of the decision itself. I wanted to be dealing with the foundation I was putting in front of me. So I didn't want yourself, Mark, or I speak in third person sense of Mark, trying to resolve whether the decision was right or not. I already knew it was right. What I wanted to be managing was how my heart felt about having made that decision and moving forward from it so I didn't relapse back into an old version of myself
yeah.
where I accepted poor treatment, feeling like an afterthought, a mother that had abandoned me, and by sisters that had betrayed me. I didn't want that to be the decision that is it the right move to make. I wanted it to be, I've already made this decision because I know it's the right by me. I now want to be able to fundamentally build that as the foundation moving forward.
And it's funny again. Once again, you make a really good point during that. My job is not to solve the problem. It's the last thing I
Mhm.
should be doing. So I'm not in your head. I'm not your head. I'm not your brain. All the answers, everything you've ever been through has been with you all the time. It knows exactly what to deal with, how to deal with it, when to deal with it. My job is simply to be curious and ask the subconscious mind, you know what would happen if, and what did happen, and why is it different now, and what can make it different now? All sorts of little permutations. And yeah, it's my job is not to walk into, and this is what people think, come in and help me solve my problem, solve my problem. No, my job's not to solve problems, it's to actually elicit a thought process by you in order to
Mhm.
solve that problem. And you did
I
that
would
amicably, really well.
I would hope I would say that it's not that it solved the problem, it broke a pattern.
Yes, lovely.
And in breaking that pattern, then solved the problem
Collapsed it. Absolutely right. Love it.
in simplistic form.
Yeah, yeah. So how are you now?
I'm happy. I'm still going through healing phases,
Yes,
which is perfectly normal.
yes.
I still find minutiae of elements of frustration just because of letdowns that I felt. But the weight that they carry is, instead of feeling like it was a chain and ball around my neck, is just more of an observation in terms of how I feel about it, which is it's okay to feel disappointed. And it's also okay to reorganize your thoughts towards a certain relationship to it wasn't what you were expecting, or it's not to the standard that you expect. And that's okay. And it's also okay to be annoyed that it didn't meet that expectation, because ultimately we have a version of trust that we put in people because of the title that they have within our lives, whether it be friend or partner or girlfriend or sister. We have to accept that they are there to teach us to then accept what's right and wrong.
Beautifully put. Beautifully put. So, with all that in mind, is there any final words or anything that you'd like to add?
I would say that if even if you haven't exhausted all methods, not to say that hypnotherapy is a shortcut, but short the rest, move and work with someone like Mark so that you gain the right elements, because CBT therapy and that will only take you so far. And in giving those a try, I would say that working with someone like Mark or someone that resonates with you is a better solve, not to understanding yourself, but understanding the relationships that you hold towards other people and to working out whether they are right for you or not. Because ultimately, this type of process is not there to make you cut ties or burn down bridges. It's there to understand whether you keep them in place or not. And I think that was my learning curve, because it wasn't a case of whether I burnt the bridge or not, it's whether I was happy with burning that bridge. And it was a long time coming, given this was over a 20-year period where I was trying to understand whether it was a bridge that needed to stand or not.
Yeah,
20 years.
20 years.
Yeah, 20
Wow.
years of understanding or misunderstanding.
Well, congratulations to you and well done. Because at the end of the day, you're the one that solved your problem. That's what it's about.
Hmm,
So, ladies and
I
gentlemen,
appreciate that.
yeah, you're more than welcome. So, ladies and gentlemen, it just remains for me to say that you can find me on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. My website is www.markcarterhypnotherapy.com. Let's make sure I'm not forgetting anything. No, I don't think so. So, ladies and gentlemen, Steve, thanks very much, or Stephen rather. Thank you very much for
Thank
doing
you, Mark.
this testimonial. I wish you the very best in life. And ladies and gents, it just remains for me to say this is Mark Carter of Mark Carter Hypnotherapy, wishing you the very best mental, emotional, and physical health. Good night.